Hello, I'm Jamila Musayeva, an international etiquette consultant, author of etiquette books and online etiquette courses. In today's video, I'm going to be doing an etiquette reaction video to the inauguration ball. So given how many memes, how many reels, how many photos were made out of the inauguration with a lot of things that were discussed heatedly online, in particular with what the guests wore as well as how they behaved, I think it's really worthy of analyzing it from an etiquette standpoint of view, dissecting the dress codes and understanding what were the correct things to wear and which ones were not and why. So the very first thing that I want to address is something that I think became the meme of the week, and that is what Lauren Sanchez opted to wear for such a formal occasion. So inauguration is obviously a formal occasion. The attire for such an event is usually business attire, business formal. So she wore a white pantsuit. That was a great choice. White is a beautiful color to be worn for formal occasions. The pantsuit is always very flattering. However, it's what she opted to match it with, or the top that she opted for, is what became the item of discussion over different social platforms. She could have worn any other top, but the one that she opted for was a lacy one. It was see-through and it looked more like lingerie than it looked like a piece of clothes or wardrobe item that you would wear underneath a blazer. So she could have opted for a shirt, she could have opted for a blouse, she could have opted for even some kind of a white tee, like a nude tee. Anything would have looked better than what she decided to style the pantsuit with. So a pantsuit on its own was a perfect choice. It's what she matched it with. It's what made her look, not in a good way, interesting, or she caught the attention, but I think for all the wrong reasons. So formality demands that you stick with formality across all items of your wardrobe, starting with your shoes up until to your accessories. You can see how one little item of clothes, one little accessory can ruin the whole look and take it from something that looks elegant to something that looks definitely not elegant and slightly on the spectrum of vulgarity. To just illustrate this a little bit better, I want to juxtapose a video of Melania Trump also wearing a white pantsuit before to a formal occasion and see how she has styled it. So you can definitely see the difference between the same item of clothes just styled differently and how it looks differently based on the little choices that we make. So this is an important example to illustrate how elegance is not just one piece of clothes or not just one thing about you, but it's really a totality of a lot of things with the way you present yourself, with the way you're dressed, with the way you are moving. So everything in totality makes a woman look elegant, not just one item of clothes. Continuing on the topic of dress codes and accessories, another important item of this inauguration event was Melania's hat that got so much attention and so much negative attention, I would even say. I don't understand where the hate was coming by the American media. They really decided to make fun of her hat the whole time, which I thought was really unjust, because she's not the only first lady that wore a hat to inauguration. There was Jackie Kennedy, she wore a pillbox hat that was made iconic and it became an iconic statement piece in her total look for inauguration. Then there was another Nancy Reagan. She wore a red hat that was matching her entire attire. She's not the first and the only first lady that wore a hat to an inauguration event. There were many other first ladies before her, and I'm sure a lot more to come, as well as there are a lot of women that wear decorative hats to formal events. And this is something that people most often wear for really formal occasions like British royal events or weddings or Kentucky Derby races or Ascot. So any kind of fancy event usually entails a hat as a part of a total look, because it takes the total attire to a next level of formality. And with a decorative hat, a man is not supposed to touch it or remove it. And unlike men, women are allowed, or it's rather the tradition that women remain with their hat on their heads indoors as well, which is not the case for men, because they have to take off their hat when they're stepping indoors, but women don't if it's a decorative hat. And with that, you can see that Melania Trump is at the dinner table or after the inauguration, she's seated, and even indoors she has the hat on. And no one has the right to say that she has to remove it because it's part of her attire. So with that being said, I also want to note that perhaps the only thing that could have been considered by her designer when making this hat is that the hat closed her eyes from the public. The brim was lower than her eye level, so it hid her eyes, her gaze from everyone around, and which is why it might have looked a bit more like she is not willing to be there, what the media said, or that, she's trying to avoid the eye contact with everyone around. I think it looked beautiful, but maybe if the brim was slightly shorter and her eye contact would not be obstructed, like in a case with Jackie Kennedy's hat and Nancy Reagan's hat, where the hat really just sat at the crown of their head, so it was decorating the top, but really was not obstructing the view. I think a majority of the negative views came from the fact that you couldn't see her eyes, you could only see her lips. Again, it's a fashion statement. It's really interesting how people judge some people for doing something where they praise others for the same thing. So it's just sometimes the double standards. I do agree that maybe if it was slightly more open, she might have gotten a bit more love about her choice of hat. With that being said about the hat, another issue that I think the media already picked up on and made a lot of memes about is how, because of that hat, Donald Trump and Melania, they exchanged they air kissed rather than kiss each other on a cheek, which I think it's totally fine. It's one of the greeting forms in Europe. Not everyone has to touch your cheek or handshake you or have a physical touch with you in order to greet you. Some do namaste, others bow, others wave, and some air kiss. So I don't see an issue in here. I just think maybe it would have been nicer of him not to even approach her for a kiss, because he could have thought already that she has a hat, and it would not be easy for them to actually do a physical kiss on the cheek. So maybe what he could have done is he could have just bowed at her or just acknowledged her, and she had done the same. Things happen. Maybe they just didn't coordinate it in advance, but I think the ball was on his yard, so he had to make the call of not stepping into her intimate space to give her a kiss because she had an accessory on her head. Continuing on the topic of accessorizing clothes, let's talk about gloves. And in this episode, we're going to see how Melania and Donald Trump are going up the White House, and there's Jill and Joe standing there. So Jill has gloves on, Melania has gloves on, matching their total look. Both look really elegant, very beautiful. And you see, as they're approaching, they are handshaking. So first we see that Trump extends his hand for a handshake with Joe first and then Jill, and so does Melania, first to Joe and then to Jill. And you see that both women remain in their gloves while handshaking. So these gloves are decorative gloves. They are part of their total attire of formal look. And as well, these gloves are, as I can tell from the video, they're meant to be worn outdoors. So they're for the warmth, because I think both of them were made of leather. So these leather gloves are usually to be worn outdoors. They're decorative, part of their total look, but they're also to keep them warm. As we know, it was really cold in Washington, so they even had to do the whole inauguration indoors rather than typically outdoors. So when handshaking outdoors, if a woman has a glove on, she can still keep her gloves on while handshaking. If she steps indoors and these gloves were meant to be only worn outdoors, she has to take them off. She can pull them finger by finger and then hold them in her hand, put it on her lap if she's seated, or into her bag if she has a bag. So this is the general rule about the gloves. However, if these are decorative gloves that are made of lace and satin, usually called opera gloves, if they're above the elbow, they're the really long ones that you wear for the weddings, really formal occasions, you may keep them indoors. If it's an opera, you will have them on. If you are at a theater, you'd have them on. The gloves have to be taken off only if you are seated to dine. They have to be taken off beforehand and done so very discreetly, again pulling them finger by finger off, and then you can either put them on your lap and then cover it with a napkin, or if you have a bag, fold it gently and put it into your bag. In this episode, I also want to draw your attention to a greeting form, in particular the handshake, and the one in particular that we see best is between Trump and Jill Biden. You see that once he has handshaken her, he picks her up by the elbow and pats her elbow or holds her by the elbow. This is usually considered a very patronizing move. It's like if it's someone who's older does it to a younger person, then it's like a paternal way of showing love, or like, you know, I'm here for you. That kind of a message is often conveyed with this gesture. But with a person who is your age or at the same level as you are, more or less, it's trying to establish an upper hand. It's trying to show who is the big person in this interaction, so the bigger brother. So you can see that he goes for a tap on an elbow. It could be a tap on an arm, it could be a hold of an arm, it could be a tap on a shoulder. This is something that he does a lot when he's handshaking other people. I've seen that when he has been handshaking a lot of presidents and heads of states, and it has always been men. So it was the first time I actually noticed him do that to a woman. I guess it's a habit of his, and it's trying to always have an upper hand in a greeting. And the final review from an etiquette standpoint of view will be of the inauguration ball itself, and that is again about the dress code. If you look at the picture of Donald Trump and Melania as they step out to be greeted by the crowd, you see that this is a black tie event because of what they're wearing. And if you have been following and watching my videos for some time, you can already tell what are the elements of a black tie dress code. And if you haven't, this will be a quick overview. So we see that he's wearing a tuxedo, a black tuxedo. Black is the most formal color for the most formal events, and tuxedo is obviously something that we reserve for formality, for formal occasion. So he has a black bow tie, already gives away the idea that it's a black tie event. He has a dress shirt, he has a black cummerbund, and he has the really dressy formal shoes that are usually of a patent leather, really polished, very sleek. And from what she is wearing, we see that it's a long floor-length gown. It's a white and black, a very beautiful combination of colors. I love how she added a modern touch to it. So instead of going with a typical necklace or maybe big earrings, she opted for a black choker that was decorated with a brooch. I thought that was a very interesting touch, or a very modern way of dressing up for a black tie event. And she had a really beautiful closed-toe pumps in white color. I think it's by Manolo Blahnik, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I am mistaken, but I think she looked incredibly elegant, and so did the second lady, Usha Vance. She went for a blue sequin dress that was, you know, open shoulder. Both were wearing open shoulder dresses, which are usually the ones you opt for when you're going for a black tie event. This is something that is different from a white tie event where the shoulders have to be covered for the majority part, and your hair has to be in an updo rather than down like it's in a case of Melania's hair. So that got me actually curious about why is the inauguration ball in the United States, why is the dress code black tie and not white tie? Because white tie on a spectrum of dress codes is the epitome of formality. The white tie dress code is the most formal dress code. And when I was doing my research as to trying to understand why it's not the white tie, because that's usually the dress code for British royal weddings or just royal weddings around the globe, really formal galas, some really fancy events around the world. From the research that I did, I think the point with choosing black tie as a dress code is to show that America is not an aristocratic country, so it's not a country based on monarchy traditions and super formality. It's rather a democratic country where people are more or less on equal terms, and that is just more egalitarian than a white tie dress code is in a way. So it's still formal, but not as strictly formal as the white tie. And it is the inauguration ball by itself. It is not ceremonial, but rather is celebratory. So it's celebrating this election day rather than being formal in the way that it is designed. It's just a party, so to speak. And that's something that actually made me think about how interesting it is that a country that is based on different values chooses to denote its most formal attire as a black tie rather than a white tie. So this was the review for my etiquette reaction for the inauguration ceremony and ball, and a lot of the things had to do with the dress codes. I don't want to make my videos political or anything anything. It's just a merely review of what they were and if what they were was adequate or inadequate based on the etiquette and the dress codes. Thank you so much for watching this video until the very end. If you would like to learn more about etiquette, you can get my books on my website. They're available for international shipment, as well as you can join my pre-recorded online courses, the Western Formal Dining Etiquette from A to Z, which prepares you for a formal dining occasion, takes you from everything, how to start with your starters and finish up with your dessert, as well as the second course is called The Art of Entertaining at Home, which teaches you how to set up a table according to 4 different seasons, how to wrap your gifts and host people over. So in case you are hosting someone for this celebration weekend, you can definitely check that course out. And if you want to learn even more in depth about etiquette, you can join my exclusive Patreon Etiquette Movie Club, where every month I feature an etiquette analysis of different kind of movies. So far, I think I've done over 40 different movie analysis, and by joining it now, you can access all those movie reviews. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!